Hi everybody, I hope you're doing well, that you're happy and healthy. Happy 4th of July, happy Independence Day to all of America. I want to first thank all of our veterans and everyone in the military currently who has fought and is fighting for our freedom. We're truly blessed to be one of the countries that can have that beautiful gift of freedom. So thank you for all of you. Thank all of you for your service. And I want to thank God, Papa, our angels and spirit guides, for loving, guiding, protecting us, and helping me channel these messages for you today. Right? So yeah, hello. I first want to say, reflecting back on my last video, that was really tough. That was hard for me. That was a tough one. I don't want to hurt my family, and I just want to, speak my truth, and I'm going to really, that's why I'm focusing and trying to really focus on myself. One reason is because, I just want to bring in my experience as much as I possibly can. Unfortunately, sometimes I have to bring up other people because they play a part, right? So, but again, my intention is not to hurt anyone, to condemn them, to look down on them. I just want my family to understand that. I'm just trying to share, like I've said before, and if it can help someone else, even one person, makes me, that's the greatest thing in the world, if I can do that for someone, if they're experiencing the same things I am, and they can learn from what I lived through. So anyway, and I wanted to say that, in reviewing my last video, I said often, I'm so critical of myself, and I caught on to that, and I would have edited it like I said, but that's the way Papa really wanted me to come across, feeling and speaking through my inner child, and that's how it happened. So I had listened. So I'm gonna really try not to do that this time. I know. So I'm really sorry about that. No, I shouldn't be, I guess, but I'm gonna try hard not to do that this time. Okay? Anyway, it's funny, right? It's funny. Yeah, and I wanted to make it a little clearer that when I said that I wasn't allowed to have any fun, pretty much that's how I took it when I looked at the video. It's not that, it's I did get to be a kid in that way where I, had, there we go again, sorry, no, you knows, no. And you don't know, right, until I tell you. So anyway, I got to experience some things, that were great, but I meant more along the lines that I couldn't explore my personal interests. And I think that's important in your development. So important to know who you are and your identity, right? And that's what I meant. Like, I wanted, for an example, I really would have loved to see if I could be a cheerleader, but I had to go to work. I had to be responsible. 15 years old, and I was working as a babysitter, sorry. I'm gonna try hard not to. This is when I wish guys could jump in and say, you're doing it, stop it. And I would laugh and say, you're right. But yeah, so I worked as a babysitter, so I did that under the table early on. And then when I was 15, when I wanted to start in that, in your high school years especially, that's when you're really trying to find yourself, right? And I wanted to try and see if I could if I'd like cheerleading, and I needed to go to work at 15 instead because I was of age, legal age, and I did. So I went to work at City Drug as a cashier instead of doing that. Now I think, luckily for my younger siblings, remember when I said there's no book, right? There's no book on how to parent. There isn't. And we're just learning as we go. And then the same goes with the truth. There is truth to, like, the oldest gets it harder than the youngest. Your new parents, you're instilling all these things in your oldest, and you're learning from your oldest children, and then you've had, I did it again, and then you have the younger kids coming in, and you kind of relax too a little bit more, and the older kids kind of took the brunt of all the really bad or not so good things anyway, right? That's how it works. The oldest has a tougher love. I've seen it often anyway. And the middle is usually forgotten. And that's okay too. I was happy at that point to be. And then the youngest ones get to have a little more freedom, right? And my younger sister and brother, I feel, were able to do that. Like, my younger sister was able to go to cheerleading. My younger brother was in baseball, and I think he played soccer. Did you, Pat? Sorry. And but could explore a little more than we did. So my older sister, my older brother, and I, and that's just what I meant by that. Not that. Overall, never did anything. And growing up, we did go in the summer, South Pond, go swimming. We went out to eat. My parents took me out to eat, and we went to a old Orchard Beach. I could open my mouth, talk, for a week at a time for vacations, and I really cherish those moments that, I do love to do, go to the ocean. So anyway, just wanted to put those down there. And as far as my the unconditional love, I felt I didn't have the unconditional love, and the emotional, and I felt that my father was emotionally unavailable for us and to receive the healthy mix of affection and discipline. So that's really what I wanted to say as well. And so going into the next topic, my next area in my life, I'll just go into high school briefly, and that was really fun. I love going to school dances. I did do that. I had a really amazing experience as a senior, where well, let me go back. I was very studious. I was very laid back, and I was a very quiet, shy girl. I accepted everyone, even though I didn't accept myself and didn't feel accepted. I accepted everyone for who they are. I saw their value as their person, as a being, just being a person, being them, not by, social status, where they came from, if they had money or no money. I just valued that in everybody anyway, saw everything valuable. And anyway, so I had a lot of people liked me. I was really great, and because I had that kind of a personality, and I really had just I didn't see the value of having quantity over quality relationships. I never was like that. And that reflected in my friend group as well. Like, I was friendly with everyone, but my close friends, I only have a few really close friends. And that's just the way I am, and valued those relationships so much. And I'm thankful for them. So thank you to all those who know who you are. And but in high school, dating wise, this is, I think, an important piece. Again, we're finding ourselves. We're trying to find our identity. It's an awkward time, let's face it, in our life, isn't it? Wasn't it? It was hard, not easy. And I already didn't know myself, right? And so going into the dating scene was really uncomfortable for me. It wasn't a happy, good experience. Why? Well, because I never felt, that was the other thing, when I didn't feel lovable, I didn't love myself, I had no self-worth, I never felt enough. I didn't feel like I was enough growing up, that I was good enough, because I didn't feel like ultimately I pleased my parents with the choices that I made. So I didn't feel pretty enough, I didn't feel good enough, I didn't feel talented enough. I mean, every area of your life which you can feel a sense of worthiness, I had none. So I was never enough. And what did I do? I attracted that to me. Yes, you're right. What I always say. And I didn't date, like I wasn't like a boy crazy. I was very attracted to them as I went on. We're very hormonal as teenagers. We all are, boys, the girls. When we are more attracted to physical appearance than anything else at that point, right? As we're finding ourselves, and fun, right? So, and that's normal. But I took everything so personally because I was so hard on myself. I was my worst enemy, my worst critic, really was. So if naturally when you start dating, you're exploring relationships, but when other people would date me and then they would look for somebody who had a better body or a better appearance, who was more talented, more outgoing than I was, I shut down more, and then I felt more rejected, and so I just as life went on, those feelings just got harder, worse. They grew bigger. They got bigger. So that's what happens when you're not healed. As you go in life, they only get bigger and more severe, more painful. And that's what I experienced now that I look back and look at, my different relationships. But yeah. So that was big. I started a date, like I had one date when I turned 16 and hadn't dated yet. And so sweet 16 and never been kissed. Well, yeah, that was me. And I dated one person that year. And it was like a couple dates, and that was it. But then I dated a little more in my junior and senior year. I became a little more outgoing. I did go to, events. I always liked to participate in school dances and go to people's houses, do some house parties or whatever, So yeah, so those were nice. So that my junior and senior year. But what was really special about my high school experience, I want to say, is that in my senior year, I was nominated for homecoming queen. I was shy and everything, and wasn't outgoing at all. And I was really, 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 really shocked when I had a friend of mine, and you know who you are if you're seeing my video, and I appreciate you like crazy, and I never forgot what you did for me that day. I thank you so much. And so he said to me in class, he said, let's get the nice girl to get this year. Let's have the nice girl do it. Now that touched my heart, so much. That was so sweet, so thoughtful. It meant so much to me. But I was also very scared and remember timid and shy. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm getting all this attention, and it was scary too. So I felt both of those things anyway. And so they were like, yeah, let's do that, and they did. They all got together and they nominated me. And guess what? When we all went to the gym to find out who was nominated, there was three runner-ups. I get right fingers up. 3 runner-ups for it, and I was one of them. And they call you down and in front of the whole school, Everyone's in the gym, in the bleachers, and we had a lot of kids back then. My gosh, I had like 160 something, I believe, in my class alone. So the whole gym was big and it was full. And being so shy and timid, and I was like, oh my goodness. I hated public speaking anyway, even when I did my reports. Oh, it was horrifying. So now I'm in front of the school and nominated for this, and I felt awkward because it wasn't how it usually worked like that, right? It was the prettiest, the most outgoing, the cheerleaders, that type of thing, and the ones that were on the top, and I didn't feel that about myself, but I was thankful. It was wonderful. It felt great too, and I'll never forget it anyway. We got to be in the parade, the girls, we were we were dressed up and we had the ribbon and we were in convertibles and we were riding in the parade and we felt like queens, like they were trying to make us feel, and it was so amazing. It was really fun. It was just great. And then we had the bonfire at night, and big bonfire out in the field, and then we went to the dance and they announced us, in the court, and I didn't win, and that's okay. The very beautiful one did, the cheerleader, the popular one did, but that was okay. It's not about winning. It was just the thought and being able to participate in it and why they did it for me that really meant so much to me, So that was great. So anyway, go back. So I have fond memories again of high school that way. Yeah, and so anyway, I met my children's dad. Let's go into my big first relationship that I majorly messed up. Okay, I really messed up in. I'm going to take full accountability and I'm going to try hard, my best to point those out. If I don't do them all, I'll remember after reviewing, and then I will add it to my next video, but I'll try to do it the first time around, okay? So bear with me. So I met their dad in high school. He was in some of my classes. It was very sweet at first. It was puppy love, it was sweet. And he carried my books to class, and we were like, not like friends, but he was acknowledging it. He was interested that way, and I think it was from French class to my next class. We were in a couple classes. We were in computer class. He was a class clown, made everybody laugh. And when he first really started to pay attention to me and notice me was when I did get nominated for Homecoming Queen. So anyway, so that was kind of nice, but it wasn't for, he's a little younger than I am, so I didn't, I wouldn't date him, and then I was friends with his older sister who was in my class, my grade level, and it wasn't till later on when I started to connect with her after high school that we connected, the kid's dad and I. So on a relationship, on a romantic level, So anyway, with that being said, I saw a lot of things wrong. But before I do that, let me just, on his behalf, again, on just being human and just my whole belief and knowledge that we bring in what we've learned, right? And we were young and dumb. You know that one, that saying, right? Young and dumb. And excuse my language, but full of piss and vinegar. That was there too, of course. And so I feel it was based on attraction, physical attraction, even though I wasn't that pretty. And but anyway, it's okay. And it was more an exterior anyway, the outer appearance, not who you are inside, not developing that friendship, that sort of thing. So, let me think here. So I went into this, I'm going to go there. I went into this feeling already as low as I did, right? So And he came into it not ready either. He wasn't ready for a relationship. There was a lot of emotional immaturity there. And I wasn't at that level where I am now either, of course, And I wasn't in a healthy mindset on how I perceived myself, so how way I showed up and what I accepted and everything. We got to keep that all in mind. So I became an overgiver, and I believed that I was only good as what I gave. So when we connected, I felt I had to prove myself. Now, we all know that we can't do that, right? You can try and try, but our value is, you can try and you're going to burn out. You give fully yourself till you burn out. And when you don't see the results, when I didn't see the results, I would try even harder. And it would knock me down more when I didn't see positive results from it. And it was just bad. A nasty cycle just kept going on and on and on, right? Building this huge snowball into a big, huge, I don't know, mountain of snow from a little snowball. So so we weren't ready for any of this. I don't believe he had experienced much and explored much when he was younger yet either. So when we got into the relationship, that's what I saw, is that he wanted to do that. And that's natural, right? To do that. But he explored his friendships. He explored, I believe, other relationships while with me. Now, that's not right. But I believe that's what happened from what I saw. And I'm not going to go into details too much. Again, I will some things just so you have a better idea, but not everything. So, so we didn't build a friendship, the foundation, right, that we needed. We had no interests that were similar. And he loved being an outdoors person, which is great and healthy, hunting, fishing, all that, right? And then we met when we were still working on our stability, our education, and I went on to nursing school, got my nursing degree. He went to get his degree in criminal justice, and that's where we were at, So so he was still in school. I graduated first. I bought my home. It was my house. It was my car first in our relationship, but I allowed him to have all of my stuff. I gave him everything. You know what I did? This is a big one, is I didn't keep first of all, I couldn't give what I didn't have. And it's the truth, right? You can't give what you don't have. And I didn't realize that I had that problem. I thought, I got it all. I have the love, I have the structure, the discipline, I'm doing the work, I'm responsible. I didn't even know who I was. I had no identity. I didn't develop my self-identity enough to know who I was going into this relationship. And I gave it all up even more. I totally had no identity at all. I just focused mainly on him. And that's beautiful in a way, but it's not healthy. I didn't keep up with my friendships. I didn't do any kind of things that I enjoyed. I didn't find what little I knew what I liked to do. I stopped doing, and I focused and gave all to him. I did what he loved to do. I go hunting and fishing with him. I lost myself totally. So I didn't present a very good picture to him, now did I? Because I just showed him, well, she does this with me. She's like this, we're good. But it's not, so that was wrong in that way. And I gave him, and I nurtured him like he was one of my children. He didn't have any responsibilities at all. I didn't hold him accountable to those responsibilities either. That was another problem. He was playing. He was going out and doing his thing after work and playing with and having his friend time. And I took on all the responsibilities for myself. The kids, the house, the paying the bills, the getting the food, everything. The house wasn't being maintained. The vehicles, nothing. So, and I mean nothing. It's crazy, right? So, yeah. And, so, really, what do you expect? What do you expect? Anyway, so, and then, so I saw the red flags right from the beginning. I was accepting of it because because of my problems. I think I've said it enough, but they are. And there was emotional, physical, and verbal abuse. There was all of it, even at the beginning of the relationship, and I accepted it. There were red flags. I accepted it. So that was my fault. And you can only, it's true, and I said it too. I said it to my children. You don't deserve what happened to you as a child, and it's not your fault. It's not the fault of you. I know that your parents did the best that they could, but it's not on you. That was on them in what happened, right? As far as responsibility there. But you ultimately are responsible as an adult for yourself, no matter what you went through, right? You are. There's a point where you got to take it on and be responsible for yourself. But I was so naive at that point still, and I didn't know, and here I am going into my marriage and bringing children in to this unhealthy, unhealed, and I just want to say sorry. I want to say sorry to my children for that. That was not good, and could have saved so much heartache for them if I would have been healthy before I jumped into a relationship, if I would have been able to recognize that. I did the best that I could, but I wanted to say that first. But so anyway, I had 3 hard, difficult pregnancies. And again, I can really go into detail about this, but it would take forever, and I really should do a book. But anyway, write a book. But anyway, so yeah, so it was kind of crazy. So we out of high school, he moved in with me, and we wanted to get married, which I think his family really wanted him to marry me, because I think, again, people think kindness is a weakness. That was another thing. Kindness is not weakness, but people will see it that way. Kindness is a strength. You can never have too much kindness in this world, but because of the way I already perceived myself, the energy I was giving out, I looked like this girl that could be just taken advantage of and controlled and told what to do, and his family, his mom, definitely saw that she thought she could do that to me, that she could go ahead and tell me what to do, as far as she would have me in the family and tell me how to raise my kids and what she could do, what she wanted. So there definitely was that in there, and I can give you an example to that. But so the other thing is being so insecure, and I already saw that my boyfriend and husband afterwards, he gave me a lot of, I saw that so I was treated like I wasn't enough. I'll just say that, okay? And that made me feel insecure. And when he was so jealous, and I couldn't look at another person, even if they was just beside me and look at him, or walking down the street, he'd get super jealous, and there would be consequences to that. So I felt, again, I got scared, and I felt like, okay, I shouldn't do this. And then that further made me jealous. That made me feel jealous when he was giving attention, or to other people and not myself. So see, it gets uglier and uglier. And then I needed the control. I needed to control my life as much as I possibly could. So having my house be mine and everything, all the responsibilities on me, I felt safe that way. If anything happened, just having that control was my overprotectiveness of myself. It wasn't healthy, but made me feel like I was okay, and that was far from the truth. So I married him. We got married. We had children right away. 3 months later, I was pregnant for my oldest. I had hard pregnancies. I worked really hard as well, and so I had my son Nick, and then actually 7 months later, I had Brandon, and then I had Cassie. They were all like 3.5 years apart, and I loved to be a mom. I wanted to say that I was in love with my kids. I didn't just love them, I was in love with them. I really, really loved it. It was my dream, and Nick was, what a beautiful experience in raising him as a baby. He was so, he was such the sweetest baby in the world. Everyone fell in love with him. He was so angelic, and he was so sweet, and he had such a beautiful aura about him. He just attracted so many people to him, and he's still that way. And I just fell so deeply in love, and I just wanted to continue to have family. I want to have a big, big family. Physically, I couldn't do it. It was too hard on my body, but and it wasn't in a healthy way. But so my husband was partying, was going out with his friends, was doing his thing, and he was drinking a lot, and there was a lot of abuse. I went through my pregnancies, the things that he did say emotionally, already broken. He'd say things like, "You're all look." He would say my appearance. He would talk about my appearance. And when I was pregnant, I was huge. I had a lot of water retention, and I was far from pretty. And he would put me down with that. He would say that he had the best of me, that I was all used up, that nobody would ever want me, or so I had a lot of emotional abuse. And then physically, I was abused as well. I mean, I was thrown up against the wall. He'd get angry with me, and I would say, I would try to work on the marriage and change him. Big mistake, right? Right there again. You don't change people. You can't change people, and you shouldn't be going to relationships thinking you're going to change anybody, because no, it isn't. It isn't going to happen, and it isn't right. So I thought, trying to make him more responsible and trying to make this work, and then we'd clash and we'd fight, and then he would get angrier, and then so it was, push me up against the wall. I'd have bruises. I definitely did get bruises, headlocks. I could go into it. Objects thrown at me. I'm just not going to go into it very deep. But anyway, and then all the drinking. And so I went through my pregnancies with my boys. Cassie came along, and that did it. Now this one I gotta go, I will go into detail. I have to go, not gonna go. Not gonna go. Proper English, Louise. Right? So I have to go into this one because this was huge. And it was bad, but it was worse. It became even worse. Because, see, for Cassie at 10 weeks, I remember a big argument. I was shoved up against the wall, and we were going to his sister's house after that with the kids, and I loaded up the boys into the van. They were big babies, and then all of a sudden I felt this huge tear in my uterus. I was early on in my pregnancy with my daughter, and so not sure the cause of it, if it was related to everything or what exactly, but that's the events, how it happened. So anyway, I was rushed to the hospital because I was hemorrhaging. I was 10 weeks along, I think, if I didn't say that already. And they found that I had a placental abruption. That's where the uterus, the placenta peels away from the wall of the uterus. And that's where the baby gets most of the nourishment, right? It gets all the nourishment. And so it's important for one. And so there's a lot of blood supply, and you bleed a lot when that happens. It tears away. So it's very serious. And so I was in the hospital, and I was able to stop it. It was stopped, a bed rest in the hospital. Went home, was in the shower and washing my hair, and I feel another sharp pain in my stomach, my abdomen, and more heavy bleeding. So rushed back in there. The doctor wants me to, at this point, have a DNC and abort because it was really bad. And I said, no, I'm not doing it. I couldn't bear the thought of that. That's how I am. And I wanted to save her. I didn't know it was a girl at that point. It was my daughter. But anyway, so he's like, well, Louise, he said, if it continues, you won't be here for to raise your boys. You have to do that. There is a point when we'll have to say, do you want to be here for your boys? And you still won't have this baby. So I tried hard not to have it happen. I even had the priest come in and pray over us to do the sacrament of the sick, and I was so anxious about it, and I was praying. I didn't want to lose her, and anyway, I had developed what they saw in my uterus, a huge blood clot, and they told me that doesn't dissolve, and that I would, as she grew, that blood clot there'd be no room, and the placenta would continue to erupt, and I would lose her naturally. So that broke my heart. That was hard to take, but I wasn't ready to give up on it. I wasn't giving up on her. So when the bleeding did finally stop, I had to be total bed rest. I mean, any even emotion would get me started, like any excitement, negative or positive. So what happened is I moved in with my parents, total bed rest, while my sister-in-law took care of my little boys, my babies, my toddlers, because they were still little, And so I really fought hard for her. I really did. So much so that I had knots in the back of my head that I had to cut my hair out because I wouldn't get up, and I would, I'd have bowel problems. My mom would take care of me, bedpans and everything. And it got so bad that even on my doctor's appointments, which I had a million of them, I swear, I couldn't walk. I got so deconditioned. I couldn't walk. My husband would have to carry me to my appointments. And then the doctor's like, Louise, you can't do this. You can't do this. You can't live like this. You have to do something. I'm like, but I can't lose her. You understand? So lo and behold, 4 months, I had my ultrasound, and I did get my miracle. The blood clot was gone. It dissolved. Oh my gosh, that was so major. That was huge. they couldn't believe it. My doctors, my gynecologists, they couldn't believe it. So at that point, I could do a little bit more, and I was able to deal with emotions where I wouldn't have the hemorrhaging start up again. So I went home. My sister-in-law then, still stayed and helped me with the boys while my husband was at work. And the deal was he would take over. I know that's big, and that's hard because my boys were little, but my husband wasn't showing up that way. He wasn't. He was going out with his friends for the most part of it. And my boys I felt the house wasn't being kept up, and the boys weren't getting what they needed. And I was really, really, really struggling with that. It caused me a lot of anxiety again, right? So I'd get angry, and I felt helpless. Talk about helpless. So I was trying to have him be there, and it would cause more aggression to come out, more hostilities. And it was just bad. I remember his sister even got mad at him for it. But see, he wasn't ready to do this, and forcing to do this. I see, if I would have been healthy, I would have noticed that. And I wasn't. So I didn't, and I see how bad it is, what it can do. So I didn't have it, and anyway, it got so bad. His drinking got worse. The partying got worse, and he was never there. And finally, on my last trimester, it was just over the top enough. I was praying again, like I said, that God would change him, and he wouldn't. But there's that free will, right? We have that free will, and he wasn't there. But the last thing is, I remember he came home drunk. He was playing hockey and coming home late hours, and I got up and where have you been? You can't do this, or whatever. However, it really went down, started, and then I had, it ended bad, ended really bad. Had the alarm clock finally thrown at me, and it was just bad. And then so the next day, I was having home health aides coming in, and nurses, checking on me regularly because of what I needed, which was wonderful. And I just was crying, and I couldn't stop, and I was so anxious, and I couldn't even control that where I could hide it before, and it was just too much to bear anymore. And I was so worried about the safety of me and my kids. And I did have threats. He did threaten my life if I ever left him, and I had so much to carry at that point. And so I had to go. It was dangerous, and it was unhealthy, and I couldn't. At this point, I was mentally unwell too. So I had called my parents, and they came and picked up the boys, and I was made up my mind I had to go and get away from this, all of it. And his sister said, I'll stay, because I wanted to stay behind and tell him. So she said, I'll be here. And then she was, and her husband at the time was there as well to help if he had to. And so when he came home, it was bad. He started tearing the whole room apart in the back of the house. And she was trying to calm him down, his sister. Well, it wasn't good. So my sister-in-law's husband took me out through the front door, took me to my parents' house. It was pretty bad. I had police patrolling my parents' neighborhood, that night, because we were that afraid of our safety. And but again, so it was rough, to say the least, if you can imagine that. And then my father, saying to me, Louise, he's like, and you had 3 kids with this man, which I get it, but I didn't need at that point, and so I was always held so accountable and responsible for everything. That's how I felt. I felt like no one had responsibility but me and everything. So again, that only hurt my self-esteem even more because I felt it was all my fault. And I often felt like I was a failure because it was up to me to make it right. And that's not fair, right? It takes two. It takes more than that, sometimes even, So, but that's what I had on my plate. And again, so I stayed with them. It was my last trimester. About at 6 weeks, my water broke and still separated. And I had to go to Dartmouth Hitchcock by ambulance because my small community hospital, not college, my hospital, my small community I can't blah 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 blah. I can't talk. My small community hospital couldn't deal with preemie. So I went there and I was off and on in labor, always at night, for 3 days before I did deliver her. But what I did is when I went into labor, I called my husband, who and I were separated, and told him that I was in labor. So of course, being his daughter, I thought it was his right to be there, right? It's only right and fair. And so he and his mom rushed down and to be there. But when my parents found out, they got really angry with me. And I remember that last night when I went into labor, I had just had an argument with them, and they were saying to me, they were mad at me, and they told me they were moving all my stuff back into my house. So now, just imagine, I was so anxious and upset, and it was horrible. I was scared. I was like, oh my God, I gotta go back there. I haven't been there for weeks. I don't even know what I'm going into. And so I went in full-blown labor. No stopping that time. And it was terrible. I delivered her a healthy 5-pound, 9-ounce baby girl. She was beautiful, perfect. But I was so down, so low. I was so depressed. And so, as much as I was in love with my kids and I wanted my kids and I knew the blessings of them and I love being a mom and I'm nurturing and all that stuff, I couldn't even go see her for the first couple hours after she was born because I was so depressed at that point and worried about my future. And so that's what they did. They moved all my things in, and here I am now with a preemie and 2 little ones, and she was in the NICU and had to be there for a week. And luckily the hospital had a place called Ronald McDonald House, I believe, where the families of children could stay there while their kids were in the hospital, and they had college students coming in. They'd cook for us and all that, and while we visited our kids during the day, and it was a really beautiful place and everything. And so after a week, she was able to come home at 5 pounds, 2 ounces, and she was doing really great. And his mom was staying with me at the house while my husband then went to work. So anyway, imagine what that was like for me. I went to the house I haven't been in forever, and I didn't know what condition it was in, with my 2 kids and a new baby, a preemie, in a relationship that wasn't stable. And I was afraid, and I haven't been able to take care of my boys and solely on my own for a long time. So I was really depressed. I was very anxious. Actually, my last trimester for my daughter, I was only sleeping a couple hours a night. I had so many panic attacks, they were all night long. So that's what I had. I went, and after she was born, I went to see a psychiatrist to get on something to help me because it was so severe. And he told me, he says, you have clinical depression. You're not crazy. A lot of people think you're crazy when you suffer from the depression and anxiety, and it's not. It's a result of being strong for too long. It really is. And there is a quote like that. And it's sad to say, but it's also amazing, and it's the truth. when you have to be so strong for so long. Your body, your physical body can take so much, and it does break down eventually. I know I did have that factor where, my family, I was predisposed to getting it to begin with because of my family history, but he told me that it was major depression, and it was due to my environment, my circumstances. Because I could have handled the hereditary part of it if it would have been a better life that I had experienced. Let me just say that. But because my environment, it made it to be as severe as it was. So in clinical depression, what happens is your brain stops to make a chemical that helps you sleep. For me, the component was anxiety with depression and like sleeplessness. Can't sleep at all. I haven't been able to sleep at all naturally since my daughter was born. I've tried and nothing's worked, even in my best moments. So I guess that's just the way it is. I'm just very blessed that in medicine today that I have that, because like he said, he goes, if you didn't have the medicine, a lack of sleep deprivation, you would die, so you would completely go crazy, you would go insane, and you would die because your body needs sleep, So I'm very thankful and blessed for that, and I'm happy I went to go get that help I needed at that point. But that's how bad it was. For me also, with that, it affected my digestive system. I couldn't eat. Everything went through me. I was always sick to my stomach, and I couldn't function. I was physically ill from clinical depression, as well as what it did to me mentally, okay? So I had to build myself back up to be able to work, which I did do. It was quite a challenge, but I did. Yeah, so anyhow, so now I'm back home with these 3 little ones, and I'm like, oh my God, how am I gonna do this? So I told my husband, I said, I'm gonna give you a year. I know, again, you don't really put time frames, right? Shouldn't, but I did. I said, I'll give you a year. I don't want any alcohol in the house. You have to help me and be a father, and be there for us, and you have to do this. So he said he would, and he was doing good at the beginning with that, and then slowly things started to fall apart. Some months went on, and then the alcohol came back and the behaviors came back. So after she turned 1, I had to leave. Again, I was praying for change, and I realized it wasn't going to happen, and it wasn't. At that point, my kids were at danger, I was at danger, and I wanted the best for everyone. So I did. I left, and I went again to my parents to get as my refuge, to get me started back on my feet. I needed the help. I needed the support system. I have 3 little kids now by myself. So I know it caused a lot of problems. I was with my family. I was with my parents for about 4 years, trying to get myself back on my feet again. And that was part of my move from New Hampshire to Pennsylvania, my journey to that move, and a year after my divorce was done. But so I know my parents gave me a lot of attention, and my children, and I know it caused a lot of hard feelings with my siblings, thinking that, I think they put it out on me, thinking that I was taking advantage. There was codependency, right? And that my parents were favoring my kids over theirs, is how I saw it, and how everybody was looking at it. And it wasn't at all the way it was. But, it is what it is. And, so it was rough. Like when we finally did separate and go our separate ways, then what was really hard is I knew that how hard this was going to be on my kids to begin with, and I already hated the whole idea that I had to get divorced. You have to understand that, and I didn't want it. I actually even tried counseling. We went to counseling maybe 2 sessions. I can't remember exactly. It was 1 or 2 sessions. We went, and because I went and sought counseling first. I should back up a little bit. Before I got the divorce, I went and sought counseling to see, how I could get myself healthy again, and I could, find out how to deal with my relationship with my husband and what I could do. And they're so amazing. I was connected with this wonderful counselor. She was amazing. Anyway, she knew what to ask me, again, without asking me. She knew how to bring it out. And gosh, she had me talking just by the way she approached topics. And then I came to find out that my problems, that's when I first realized my problems stemmed from how I saw myself, my lack of self-love, from my inner childhood wounding. It came, and I didn't even know. I didn't recognize. I thought everything was normal in my family life growing up at that point. And then I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, really? Are you kidding me right now? Like, that was my problem? And it was. And I started to really work hard. And I didn't know how to yet at this point. But I tried counseling, like I said. And, there was this one thing that she did ask us that just determined the whole, whether it was something to fight for anymore or let go. It was that she said to my husband, he's defensive, and he wasn't opening up anyways. I think he came in thinking we were going to attack him. I can understand that feeling as well. I get it, but there's a lot of ego there, and just and immaturity again. So she said to him, if you didn't have the kids, would you be with her? And he says, no. If it wasn't for the kids, I wouldn't. We have no interests at all. So that was so disappointing to hear, but that was important that I understand that. So there was no real love there to begin with, That was hard. So when we did separate, and we were gonna get the divorce, and we had to do the co-parenting thing, right? And that was hard. And like I said, I already knew what it would do to my kids, so I didn't want to talk badly about my kid's father to them and his family, because I didn't want to. I knew what it would do to my kids emotionally, and I was very protective, and I didn't want to hurt them in any way. But they were doing it. At first, his mom came to me, and she was agreeing. Everyone saw what the problem was, and they were like, we understand, and it's not your fault. But the minute that it was happening, and that's really what families do anyway, right? You're supposed to support each other. But the way they did it is they did come together with him, but they came up against me. They attacked me. I know. How do I know? Because my son, who was only 3.5, 4 at the time, was coming home upset, and he would tell me, I'm going to share these 2 things. And he would say to me, this little boy would say, he told me, he did say that Daddy was a monster. He said, Mommy, I don't want you to go to jail. And I saw already, I knew, and I had seen it in the marriage, things that I went through with his mom. I knew that she saw me as, and with my kindness, that she thought she could tell me what to do. She wanted to do what she wanted to do with my kids, no matter how it didn't matter how I felt about it. When I didn't agree with her, she was mad at me for it, and she would fight me against it. She'd put me down. I remember my husband would never fend for me either. She'd come to my house after just having had the traumatic experience of being a new mom with my first son, and she would put me down and say that I portray myself as being this Christian girl, this wonderful Christian girl, and I don't take care of my husband, and she just went on and she attacked me, and my husband was sitting right there, and he didn't even say a word. So I ran upstairs, cried, and I put my foot down and I said, you can't see him. You can't treat me like that. And she took months. She came and apologized, and then we started to see each other again, and the kids too. But then after that, it was like things like the kids would go to her house, and I'd have all their things packed up, their clothes, their diapers, and she'd send she wouldn't touch my stuff. She'd have all the things for the kids, and her own things, and she would use for the kids. Like mine was no good, and then when like the kids would cry and I'd want to go comfort them when I was with them, and then she would take them from me and take them away and say, no, this is my time. And I'm like, I'm their mother. I'm going to comfort them. So that's the kind of thing I had to deal with. And then when preschool came up, she wanted me to enroll my son into a school she wanted him to go to. And I'm like, I want to send him to Catholic school. And she didn't want that, and so it was all about what she wanted. And when she realized that I wasn't going to do what she said, then she became really, really nasty, and I was no good. And I know I've had, over the years, the family trashed my name everywhere. And I know to this day they do. And you know what? That's a reflection of them. That's not me. And I'm not going to stoop down to that level, but I'm going to put it out there. And it was not right, it was not fair, and it's not true. Not true. And I've been attacked multiple times by them. I have proof of it. So anyway, so my kids had to experience that. Unfortunately, I couldn't protect them from that. I felt like I failed them. I really did. It killed me, and yeah, so it's so important that you don't do that for our kids. Remember, I did have a video back about that, back when I first started my channel, what it would do to them, and why and how that affects them, your kids, don't forget that, you're the dad and the mom are part of the kids, and you don't talk bad about the other parent. First, imagine what that does to a child in any ways, any kind of aggression towards the parents together. But when you talk bad about the other parent to the child, they are part of that parent, so they take on that pain. They feel that guilt, makes them feel guilt. It makes them in shame to a certain point, and I'll never forget, like I said, when my adult child told me, he told me what that did to him, and it killed me. It really did, when he said what it does is it points an arrow right to your child's heart, and it's like sending it right through it, and, breaking your child's heart. And I know what it did. I know that they all suffer from anxiety, depression, and I know they have a lot of inner child wounding too. And I saw that coming as they got older, and I felt helpless because I knew what they were going to struggle with as an adult. And anyway, it's just not right. But I also told them, that, we can't choose our family. I told my son, we can't choose, we can't control what they do. And remember, hurt people hurt others, right? And people, for the most part, will do the best that they can, and they think it's right. I don't think it's right for anyone to be mean to anyone, period. But, yeah, so hurt people hurt others, right? And I said, that's not for you to carry what happened to you as a child. It isn't. It's not your burden, and it's not your fault. And a lot of the kids carry that with them. And I said, you can have families that are like that. You can love them, but you need to set those boundaries. Don't allow them to. You stay true to yourself and what you want and what you believe in, and you can love them and accept them, but, you don't have to live in an unhealthy environment. You know what I'm saying with that? I had something else I wanted to say with that, but I can't find the word at the moment. Yeah, so help boundaries. I had no boundary settings, and people were always crossing my boundaries, but yeah, so yeah. So just knowing that you can still love people in your family, even though they do what they do. But there's another thing I want to say about that. Well, if I can't remember it, when I do, I will add it to my next video. But, you know, we have to really, really protect our kids, you know. But see what I'm saying? That was so unhealthy. Now, what did I do? What did I risk my kids? I did, because I was unhealthy. I wish that I knew that then, because I never would have brought kids into that, but I didn't. See, so even the best people with the best intentions, you know, are not healed, and it happens, you know, and that's life. Life is definitely not perfect. Life is messy. I'm going to use that a lot right now. Life is messy. It's messy, and yeah, so that's really been my first relationship. There's a lot more, like I said, but I think you got a really good picture again of that. So anyway, thank you. Thanks for your time, and I hope that helped. And again, I had no identity, and I know now how important that is to keep your identity in any relationship. You have to be whole, right? That's the other thing, is that you have to be in a really great, healthy relationship. You need to be whole in yourself. You should be two whole people that come together. We don't have to be fully healed, but we have to be pretty much healed enough that and continue to heal ourselves and help each other heal each other, and be there, you know, have each other's back. So anyway, I'm going to leave you again. I'm saying that again, and I hope you have a great day, and happy Independence Day, America. Sending you all my love and all my light, on peace and comfort, and be safe this weekend. Okay? All right. I love you guys. Bye.